Sure.
I love classical music, and I noticed you used a lot of Mozart to good effect. And I was just wondering if there was a particular reason you chose Mozart.
Yeah, that was, again, this was a good example of me getting myself in over my head. When I opened this up and I thought it would just be a short little thing, and the writer went crazy with it, she had notes along the lines of, I want something kind of dramatic and dirgy and you know, with a you know, kind of an energy to it, but also, you know, this down note as well. You know, like his from the movie, which is ultimately what. So she's like, but go find some. Again, don't tell anybody, because I guess theoretically I should have paid for it. But no, this is a little thing we did on our own. We put it, you know, online and on YouTube and stuff like that. So I'll say I'm okay. But that's how it came down to. I literally went looking, you know, like archives.org and that stuff. Really didn't find anything that kind of suited. So in the end, I just kind of lifted it and put it in the background. She was happy and saved me some work. So. Hand way up there.
You said it was very, because honestly I've never heard of the game before, and I'm actually kind of excited about it. You said it was pretty mod friendly. Have you found people are starting to do their own takes on the story? Yeah,
actually, and not just from the modability either. Everything we kind of did along the way tended to appeal to different people. So Erin, for example, the writer, completely without us asking her, which was awesome, wrote the first 2 chapters of a story, which she then expanded out into a novel, which went into one of those earlier collections. And actually, one of the, is it an auction? Is it one of the auction things?
It's actually a prize. Ticket prize is actually the game with the book.
Whoever wins, you win an awesome prize then, because I would have put it up for auction. It was the last copy of that collected edition that we have at the office, and it comes with, I'll tell you, it's not, you know, high quality or anything, but it's a paperback that she put in. That inspired a whole bunch of people ultimately, so we ended up having to add to our forums a tactical action report area where people just started writing their own stories in the universe. And she made herself, the writer made herself available too, so as they went along, it wasn't just random fan fiction. They would ask her things and she would provide them with an answer, like what's the lifespan of a Tarka or whatever, and she would tell them, and then they were able, so they weren't kind of wandering blind. So we ended up with a group of people, for example, just wrote their own stories. One of the early things we did is we made it clear to people that, you know, it was open-ended enough that they could get in there and they could, you know, play around with their own stuff. Kind of a mixed blessing, because the mod group always kind of contains at least, you know, 1 in 10 guys that kind of express it as, thanks for giving us access to your game, we will now make it better for you. Which is kind of a punch in the gut there every Monday morning. But yeah, there is a group of guys that came in, and we even said to them, like, if you guys can finish off what's required for a race, and I mean, that's kind of like telling them, as soon as you guys can jump to the moon, we'll help out. Because the game, from what you saw there, like the way the ships mix and match, we have 3 sections is what we did. So each of 6 races now, with probably 12 to 24 sections of the 3 sections over 3 ship class sizes. That's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sections sort of thing. So they've slowly been plugging away at it, but we told them, I mean, obviously we got our own stuff we need to get done, but if you guys get it complete, we would unofficially, officially plug it in, which is to say then that we would help them release it in such a way that it would not screw up the game for people who weren't into it or didn't know about it to keep playing. But you know, the game does allow you to plug in stuff, and then through the initialization file point to alternates and stuff like that. So we told them, you know, we will help you plug that in. So yeah, we have had people. They've been working on it slowly but surely. Yeah. So.
Can you say if there's a good way to get a job as a digital engineer or modeler? Any good way to get the foot in the door?
Any way you can. I know that's not a very helpful answer on the surface. It is kind of literally the truth. There is no set path, is what it comes down to, and every year the market is different to the job market. So, for example, 2009 was absolutely crap. And, you know, for those of you here, how many people are actually from Vancouver? just so I have so you guys probably have a vague sense of things like, 2 years ago, Activision bought up Blizzard and went crazy dropping titles, which meant out of 4 teams operating at Radical, they cut 2, and then they finished up prototyping. Huh? Yeah. Where you at?
No, I know one.
You know guys,
Yeah.
yeah. And then this past year, they cut it down again, so it's down to 1 team sort of thing. So, and prior to that, MBAs everywhere were completely thrilled with the idea of outsourcing your art to Korea or Russia or wherever, which is something that Kerberos at our size, we've never had to worry about, A, because we don't work in art scopes quite that scale, and B, when we're trying to keep ourselves at like kind of a 1-team size, we are trying to keep ourselves at kind of a flat hierarchy, which is not to say that anything goes, but we try to keep it open enough that everybody working on the team can work on stuff, bring up their own ideas, etc. Which means that it's best that if they're in the office rather than outsourcing to somebody. So right now in Vancouver, for example, we're kind of at the bottom of the pit of they've unloaded a bunch of teams. We're strangely enough one of the few companies in town that actually picked up extra people, which of course in the scheme of things means we picked up 2 guys, but we didn't cut people, whereas a lot of teams did. So there's a lot of guys floating around. So I'm not trying to be kind of depressing. I'm trying to kind of give you a sense of how things move and flow. That means right now it's kind of a low ebb for coming on as art. Programmers is not so bad. Programmers, there always seems to be a much higher need. But art, it amounts to hustling yourself as much as you can. So all the old standbys of maximizing your portfolio, trying a little bit of everything to show that you're, if you can be a jack of all trades, show off that you can be a jack of all trades, or don't just show off one aspect like modeling and then say, but I can also do animation. Try your best to show off animation, etc. And just try to show that in the long run, rather than having to deal with shipping money overseas or trying to get the whole work visa stuff sorted out to bring some guy from the States and all that, you can do the job too. I entered into the industry because my degree is history, which landed me a job in testing.
Yes.
For the sole reason that they decided that anybody who could, write history papers and all that probably had some ability to pay attention to what programmers and artists were saying and give them good feedback when things were broken, as opposed to button push not work or whatever. And that's where I started, and then from there it turned into having to, I can help out with the website, can I help out on some level building, just learning as much as I could. It doesn't apply specifically, actually it applies even more, because design, in the scheme of things, programmers, you always got a pretty good shot, artists, depends on the year, and designers, it's always going to be a fight. Like, it's just the way it is, right? Because unless you're like EA, where the company hires, they don't even have designers, they have what they call producers. I think associate producer is officially what we would consider a designer. But design stuff comes from all the way at the top too, at the top executive producer guys and all that. So those teams tend to have like 6 guys or whatever that would be commonly understood as a designer. But most other teams, it's 1 or 2 guys. Like Kerberos has Martin Cyrillus, who's our CEO, is also our lead design brain. And then when other stuff needs to be picked up, I tend to do some as well. So just to give you some idea, that I came in when things were booming, and I still had to go into the service entrance and work my way up. So it's the same for artists. I mean, I don't want to say that, I don't want that to sound depressing or anything like that. I wish there was a magic thing where I'm like, here's the secret, and it'll get you a job. It just amounts to just, it's not what you think. I mean, the whole business manual of getting people's faces is, no, you're going to burn them out. Trust me, they won't like that. But making yourself available or visible, I mean, it's pretty much everything that you might think, right? It's just as easy to send them to a website as it is for them to plug in a disc. Almost easier sometimes, believe it or not. So kind of doubling up on those options, that when they show up, if you give them a disc of stuff, also let them know that they can go kind of peruse stuff on a website, because half the people you show it to will not want to take the time or energy to take whatever's out of the disk drive to put in your disk, and will be happy to just go have a look at the website, etc. It is just kind of showing what you got as quickly as you can and as best as you can.